I'm Joe Helko, Director of Community Relations for Northwestern Counseling and Support Services, and welcome to another episode of NCSS Here for You. Since 1958, Northwestern Counseling and Support Services has been providing access to high-quality services which promote healthy living and emotional well-being to the residents of Franklin and Grand Isle counties. Over the years, as the needs of the community have changed, so too have the programs and services made available to assist children, adolescents, adults, families, and seniors. We take our role in the community seriously and strive to provide a continuum of the highest quality services to meet the needs of individuals who at any point struggle and seek assistance. June is Pride Month, which commemorates years of struggle for civil rights and the ongoing pursuit of equal justice under the law for the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community, as well as the accomplishments of LGBTQIA+ individuals. Every day, individuals that identify as LGBTQIA+ endure mental health challenges at a greater rate than most people. In fact, the most recent Vermont Youth Behavior Survey results of high school students indicate that LGBTQIA+ students are nearly 2.5 times as likely as heterosexual cisgender students, reporting that their mental health was most of the time or always not good, and are nearly 4 times as likely to have attempted suicide during the past year. NCSS is a welcoming organization which has a diversity and cultural awareness committee whose purpose is to establish a respectful and welcoming environment for all persons served and employed by raising awareness and increasing sensitivity to achieve optimal health. To discuss Pride Month, mental health, and the LGBTQIA+ community and NCSS as an inclusive and equitable organization, I'm pleased to introduce this month's guests. Heather Getty, team leader for the Adolescent Services team, and Lexi Benware, HR generalist, and the chair of the NCSS Diversity and Cultural Awareness Committee. I'd like to welcome both of you to the show this month.
Thanks, Joe.
Let's start with what are some of the issues that youth who identify as part of the LGBTQIA+ community face in our community?
Well, as you mentioned in your introduction, Joe, the 2021 High School Youth Risk Behavior Survey is reporting that nearly 2/3 of the students that identify as LGBTQIA+ experience nervousness, anxious, they're on edge most of the time, and they report feeling that way in the last 12 months, and it is at a higher rate than youth that identify as heterosexual, cisgender. A lot of the youth that we work with on my team, because I oversee the adolescent services team, report an increase in bullying over their heterosexual, cisgender peers, and not just in the school hallways, which I think we've always known bullying goes on in school hallways and school buses, sporting events, but also out in the community, walking down the street. Some of our youth face higher rates of homelessness because of their LGBTQ identity, and they face a lot of non-acceptance from their family members and peers. So it's a struggle for them to just be who they are.
Another thing, too, when you mention about the bullying that has, I think, overtaken some of these situations is through social media as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't just stop before the bullying stopped when you got off the bus,
right,
when you got into the door of your home, and now it just follows you and it's in your hand. You know, they have their phones, and it's easy, I think, as adults for us to tell youth, well, just ignore it or put down the phone or block those kids, but I mean, adults struggle with putting down the phone. It's almost not a fair ask of adolescents to put away the social media. It's part of their identity as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. What types of programs or services are currently in place to support these youth?
Well, it's kind of exciting. Spectrum Youth Drop-In Center on Lake Street in St. Albans. Every other Wednesday, they have a LGBTQIA plus group for youth at the center. It's an open group, so people can just show up and attend. There's also a group run by NCSS, the Children, Youth, Families Division. That's a support group for youth. They do like a 10-week curriculum. It helps those youth identifying as part of the community with self-acceptance, building community, fostering positive mental health. They're currently taking referrals. They don't have a set start date right now, but it is a group that runs throughout the year as they get, enough youth to run a 10-week program. So.
Yeah. And I would think, once again, having a program like that with one of our community partners is incredibly important.
Yeah.
Always, but certainly now probably more than ever.
Yeah, it's really good for youth to see more than one agency or more than one safe area for them to be able to gather and be themselves and experience social interactions that are positive.
Yeah. So NCSS has had a Diversity and Culture Awareness Committee, which was actually formed back in 2009. And their purpose is to establish a respectful and welcoming environment for all persons that we serve and employ by raising awareness and increasing the sensitivity to achieve optimal health. So Lexi, as the chair of the committee, can you explain the committee in more detail and what it does?
Yeah, so the Diversity Committee, like you said, started in 2009, and it really focuses on bringing people together, despite any diversity or differences that we may have. And we really want to bring people together, so, based on diversity, equity, inclusion, cultural differences, and we focus on all of those aspects. So if you look at our logo, it's actually a circle, and it focuses on, all the different ways that people can be unique. So it could be, LGBTQIA, you could be part of that community. It could be socioeconomic, it could be race, it could be culture, it could be marriage status, it could be education level. We like to focus on everything and how we can use those unique properties to bring everybody together, and how to create a safe and welcoming and respectful environment at NCSS. And so I have, gladly been able to be on the committee for the past 2 years, and we just continue to, stay up with everything and bring people together, one step at a time.
Well, and the committee has introduced so many different ways to share information and to get staff engaged. And I know one of the things last year that was really interesting was the movie series,
Yes.
the film series, which was a first, and to your point, covered a variety of different categories. So people begin to see, a lot of times they hear about diversity and they look at race.
Yeah.
And it, as you mentioned, Lexi, is so much broader than that.
Oh, yeah.
That I think things like the film series have really been able to help staff to understand certain other aspects of diversity.
Yeah, no, that was a great opportunity. We had one film a month, and it covered a broad a range of topics in diversity, including LGBTQIA. So we watched the movie or the documentary Disclosure, which talked about transgender and intersex folks and what their life is like, and how they've been depicted in movies and as a society. And it really kind of de-villainized them and humanized them, and showed just how they're like everybody else and how they're going through their life, and it's not for anybody else other than them. And so that was really eye-opening, and we were able to hold group discussions and talk about that, and really come together and learn from everybody's individual experiences and have a greater understanding of the community. We also watched Gender Revolution with Katie Couric, and I kind of like to call that the ABCs of the LGBTQ community, and it really brought it back to the basics of what is gender, what is sexuality, and it answered those questions in a way that we could then talk about and have a greater understanding as well. So lots of great learning opportunities that we've had. But we've also, invoked policy change as a diversity committee. So Joe, you're going to have to help me. This was before my time, but when did we do the all-gendered bathrooms? That was a while ago.
That has been a while.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's been maybe 6 years ago.
I was thinking
something
probably
along those
around
lines.
6 years. Yeah.
Which, once again, for our part of the state, I know someone who had visited us from UVM, who's in their program there, was really taken by the fact that he made the point that UVM wasn't even at that level yet, even though their programming is really way ahead of a lot of other colleges and universities. So That, and the other thing, Lexi, that came through the committee that was big is that I think it was last year we officially went with the federal date of June 19th, of Juneteenth being a holiday that NCSS staff can take off as well.
Yeah.
We went with the floating holiday.
Yeah.
Which was something that's, no matter what somebody's beliefs are or anything, you can take a day.
Exactly.
And that came through the committee as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, our policies are constantly changing, and this gave people the flexibility. And it kind of gave us, as an agency, saying, hey, we don't own every holiday. Just because we celebrate this as an agency doesn't mean every individual is feeling the same way. And so we gave that flexibility and that choice back to employees, say, you take the day that's important to you, and we respect that. And it really became a win-win situation for everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So which community partners does NCSS work with to help the LGBTQIA plus youth in our area? I know you mentioned Spectrum earlier, but there are others as well.
Oh, yeah. So Spectrum Drop-In Center is a huge community partner since they've come to the area. We also work closely with Voices Against Violence. We work closely with some of our local private therapists, lots of school staff. There's the GSAs across the state, and that's the Gay Straight Alliances that are at the schools that students can join. And they're almost kind of like a subset diversity group where they help make decisions for events at the school and messaging and flyers to make sure that they're all inclusive. And we work with some of those GSAs. One of our case managers on my team formed a partnership among some of the local organizations to collect and share resources that we know are available and to kind of create a list of resources that we'll be able to share with our youth and their families if they're looking for support in their LGBTQ plus identity. We're also brainstorming ways to create safe environments for our youth in the community where they can be themselves, and we're hoping to plan some future events. We've developed 2 questionnaires to disperse to gather some more information on what is already in place and what is needed. One of the questionnaires is for service providers in the area, and the other one is for the youth, so that they can report back to us what do they see that's already here and that's helpful, and what do they see as a need. And one of the questions that we added to the youth survey was one that said, what does an all-inclusive, accepting, safe space look like to you? Because that's going to be important information for us to have when we're thinking about the ways that we model our spaces and the ways that we approach a message.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's great to hear right from them, You have
Yes.
an idea of what might be safe and welcoming, but, going straight to the source is always great.
Yep, absolutely. So what are some of the activities or events that you're hoping to offer in the future for this population of youth?
Well, last year, Spectrum held a queer prom. So the theme, I think, was Alice in Wonderland, I think was the theme. And we're hoping that that's going to become an annual event for youth. And then we're also hoping to offer more events throughout the summer and throughout the upcoming years. It'll be important to get those surveys from youth back so we know what they're looking for, so we can model the events for them, and creating safe spaces for them to gather as a community. We also, one of our long-term goals has been to get a Friday night group started in this area, and that would be in partnership with Outright Vermont. And I know we had one planned. We were all set. We had a date. We were going to start May 2020. And I don't know if anyone knows what happened in the year 2020. But the pandemic hit and really completely wrecked what we had in place. And obviously it's taken all of us. We're still kind of coming back from the shutdown and the pandemic. So we're hoping that will come to fruition. And for those that don't know, Friday Night Groups by Outright is a social and support group for self-identified queer and questioning youth in the ages of 13 to 19. So,
Okay. Well, certainly, even though there was the delay because of the pandemic, hopefully that will become reality during 2023.
Yeah, we really think it could be a helpful thing for our youth. Our youth are welcome to go to the Friday night group that happens in Burlington, but I mean, as many people around here know, we don't have a great public transportation system because we're very rural, and it's really difficult for youth in outlying rural communities to make it to Burlington. It's almost like asking them to go to another country.
Sure.
So if there's a way we can bring it, and even St. Albans is going to be a stretch for some of those youth to get to, but it's more centrally located for them. So.
Yeah. So what does the Diversity Committee do to support NCSS staff that are in the LGBTQIA plus community?
Yeah, so we do a lot of different things. So we had kind of mentioned we did the all-gendered bathrooms, some of the group discussions that we've had, but we also have done trainings where we brought in the Pride Center. So this past February, we brought in Kel from the Pride Center, and they did a great training, and we just offered people to come and ask the questions that they had, learn about more resources that the Pride Center had, and just really get people more comfortable with it. And so we like to say, June is Pride Month. We're all excited. We do a lot of different things, but we really do things throughout the entire calendar year. So we have that. We also have the Pride Parade coming up in September. But we're also doing a Pride fact check this month for June. So through screens throughout our agency, we'll have a definition of different LGBTQIA related words. So, we're actually starting with what is LGBTQIA plus? Like, what does that mean? That looks like a lot of letters, but what does it mean? And so just kind of breaking down those barriers and, informing people like, we'll meet you where you're at. Like, if you don't understand it, we're here to help you. And so we're constantly doing different things, like the film series, like the fact checks, meeting people in different avenues to constantly break down those barriers. Yeah.
And I think one of the wonderful things, like was mentioned earlier, the film series, because I've attended several of those, it does give staff an opportunity to be curious in a space where if there's questions that they might have that they're not sure how to ask or who to go to, we can have those discussions in that space. And they don't feel judged, and they're able to really like have some great meaningful discussion. I loved those series, and I hope that's something that we continue doing as an agency.
We definitely will. And I like that we didn't label them as trainings, because I am not an expert by any means, but I am interested in helping people learn, and let's get together and take our unique individual experiences and build off of those to create a better understanding for everybody. And so that's really what was a great idea of like, okay, like let's watch this film, and based on that, in a very respectful and educational way, let's have a conversation where we can lift everybody up, rather than, be like, oh, I don't understand that, I'm not gonna talk about it. Or maybe talk about it when you don't understand it, and that can be just as harmful. And so we had a basis, we talked about it, we had questions, and I think a lot of learning came from it.
Yeah, very much so. And you're right, Lexi. I mean, it isn't a training per se. It's a film series. It's a screening. And, you watch the film and then have this discussion afterwards. And, as an organization, other areas that we have featured in film series over the years are things such as suicide prevention and awareness, where once again staff can come together or the community can come together and learn and then discuss and hopefully just further get a better understanding of the why and what can we do to assist individuals that might be struggling. So to Heather's point, I do believe that the plan of the committee in the future is to continue to have screenings. And I think even one of the discussion points was, we've been doing those screenings with staff. Might there be some topics that we could even offer to the greater community?
Yes.
Or at least
Which
to
would be
our
great.
other community partners.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And do it in a fashion, once again, it's a screening, maybe we do it in the evening or, all that to be decided, but just another way to get more and more people involved in a discussion.
Exactly.
Those are some of the, the committee itself does a lot for the staff, and I think is very supportive and is always looking for ways to, in one way or another, make sure that people feel included and heard.
I agree.
Day in and day out. So, what are some ways that individuals can help our youth to feel accepted and valued for who they are?
I think it's important for folks to get educated and be open to that education. Watch documentaries, like we were just talking about. I think that's a great way to just kind of dip your toes in, right? Read articles, Google terminology that you might hear, but you don't know what it is, and ask questions. Youth they are the experts in their lives, and they love being the experts in their lives. They're very happy to talk about themselves, ask them questions. And then when you do that, listen to them. Like really just close your mouth and listen to them and be open to what they have to share. So that they know they can share openly with you. Be a role model for kindness and inclusion. Just be a role model for kindness in general. If they see you being kind to other people and including other people and not excluding, they're more apt to do that as well. They're watching you all the time. Let young people know that they can be themselves around you, that they can be silly, and they are at that stage of life where they're not quite an adult, but they're not a little kid, and allow them the opportunity to just kind of blossom and try out who they want to be with you. Become involved on a local level in creating safe spaces for youth, and making sure that spaces are welcoming for all youth. Ask youth their pronouns. And I know there's a lot of controversy about that, but it's pronouns. We all use pronouns. He, she, you, they, them. Like, just ask them their pronouns and do not assume their gender. And respect them. Like, youth want to be respected. And you'll be so surprised how much respect they will give back in return. So...
I'm glad you brought up the whole pronoun scenario, because I don't know how many years ago it was now where it started within the diversity committee, but I know it's grown throughout the staff, where many will include in their signature block their pronouns. And I want to say that started maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not exactly sure. It's been a while. But you're right, Heather. That's just another way of, in a very, very kind, passive way, in making people aware, just by it being in your signature block for emails.
And even in the time of the pandemic, with a million Zoom meetings, people would put in like their name, and then to be like Lexi, she, her, and it was just a subtle way of, you don't even have to say anything; it's just there, and you let people know, and it's just one more thing.
It's a way to show acceptance. It's a, like you said, kind of like a quiet way to just show that there's acceptance. You can be who you are.
Yeah.
And you hit on the one word that is the most critical in not only this, but anything that we talk about, and it's not even just mental health world or developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, but in life, and that is the word listen. You've got to zip it up sometimes and just truly understand what the other person is saying and talking about. When somebody is so engaged that they can't wait for the person to stop talking so they can talk, they're going to miss the point most probably. But by truly sitting back and listening to what somebody's saying and then kind of taking it in and understanding it, to your point, and Lexi and Heather, it's learning, it's education, and then you move on from there and hopefully grow as a person.
It's that old adage, like listen to understand, not to respond.
Exactly.
And I think that's hard for us in general, because you don't like quiet space. We're uncomfortable with it, but it's important to listen to understand and not to respond.
Yeah, truly is.
I do have to say, I didn't think listening is great, but when you were saying, the one key word I was pulling at, I was like, oh, it's going to be respect. It's going to be respect.
And I was thinking kindness.
Okay.
Now, isn't that okay? But let us say, we're not going to argue about that. But let us say this: that I think by listening and truly listening, that does lead to respect and
Yes.
acceptance and
Yep.
inclusion and all of the
And
other things.
kindness
And
and-
kindness, all the
Yeah.
other things we're talking
That's
about.
true.
Yeah.
But I
Yep.
really do believe that first and foremost, to get to those points, you've got to
100%.
listen.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you may never respect the other person because you're not understanding what in the world they're talking about because you haven't listened
Yeah.
to what they're
That's
saying.
true.
So all of these words are critically important.
Yeah.
But I just think that, and you're right, Heather, in today's world with all the devices people are on and just all of the hundreds of thousands of messages every day that you're bombarded with through every kind of media known to, to mankind and what have you, it's sometimes hard to just sit back and say, this is what's important, this is what is not important. So,
Yeah.
but with what we're talking about, I think it's just critically important that it starts with the listening and then learning, and then
Yeah.
we move from there.
Well, at the end of
So-
the day, we all just want to be respected, and that's what all this
Yeah,
is
exactly.
about. Is
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you want people to make the most of their lives.
Yes,
And the only
absolutely.
way that's going to happen is if all these other things take place.
yeah.
So we have a few more moments. Lexi, you had mentioned earlier that
Yes.
in the state of Vermont, the Pride Parade actually does not take place in June, but it does take place in September. And this year, I believe it's September 10th
Yep.
in Burlington. How's NCSS involved in
Oh
this
my
event?
gosh. Well, so we've done this a couple years now, and it was so much fun. This was my first year last year doing it. Oh my gosh. Heather, you were there
It
too.
was so
It was
fun.
such a good
the
time.
energy at the you can't be sad at the Pride Parade. It is just it's amazing.
So many people coming together and just lifting each other up and just full of love and just like so excited that they can be out and be proud and be who they are. It was really uplifting, and NTSS had a small part in that. And so last year we marched in the parade, and then we also had a booth, which was just absolutely amazing. And we had, I think, 30 people show up.
I think so.
So we like quadrupled what we had done the year previous,
Yeah.
and then it was supposed to rain the entire day, and so we're getting all ready. Everybody's full of life. We're marching down, and then as soon as the parade ends, it starts pouring down.
It was.
Yeah.
The timing was perfect. It was like
Yeah.
as soon as we got to the park, then the rain started, and we're like, oh, that timing was just right.
Yeah. And then we had a booth to man after, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna be the only one there. Like there's no way, like all these people, all these NCSS people are sticking around. Every single one of them stood by in the pouring rain
Yep.
and talked to people about the importance of mental health and how to get help. But it just really showed me that this is necessary. This is a community that needs help and wants to show up
Yeah.
and is there. And so it was such a cool experience that we're doing it all again.
Yep.
And so it's September 10th, and anybody is welcome to join. So whether you are a staff, if you're a client, if you're a family member, or if you're just a community member that wants to be in the Pride Parade but doesn't exactly know where a spot would be for you to fit, we're saying come with us.
Come on down.
Yeah, we're here for you.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
listen, great way to end the show
Yeah.
this month. And I do want to thank my guests, Heather Getty and Lexi Benware, for being on the show today and sharing their insights on Pride Month and the LGBTQIA plus community and success of mental health services and resources that are available. I also want to thank you, the viewer, for spending time with us again this month. You can learn more about NCSS programs and services by logging on to ncssinc.org. I'm Joe Halco, and we'll be back next month with another episode of NCSS Here for You.